Welcome to the Overthinker's Guide to Modern Marketing, or as we like to call it,
How to sell a sandwich without accidentally starting a cult.
Welcome back to the Overthinker's Guide to Modern Marketing, the podcast for people who have spent 3 hours crafting the perfect social media post only to receive 2 likes, one of which is their own accidental tap while checking whether anyone else had actually liked it. I'm your host, Sean Makin, a man who thinks about organic marketing with the same intensity a Labrador thinks about a tennis ball. Which is to say, constantly, enthusiastically, and with a level of commitment that occasionally worries family members.
Sean, we really need to talk about this.
Before we begin, please, as always, make yourself comfortable. Ideally, somewhere with good lighting, a mildly overpriced beverage, and enough aesthetic credibility to suggest that you've recently used the phrase personal brand without irony. Right then, today we are discussing a subject that causes equal amounts of hope, confusion, and low-level panic among business owners: organic marketing. Or as it's more commonly known, doing marketing without paying for every single person to notice you.
Episode 13. How can businesses win with organic marketing, or
Why shouting louder isn't always the answer.
Let's begin with one of the most persistent myths in modern marketing. A myth repeated in boardrooms, networking events, LinkedIn comment sections, and occasionally by people who own ring lights. The belief that marketing is either A, completely free, or B, completely impossible. Remarkably, both conclusions are often reached by the same person, usually within the same week. On Monday,
We don't need advertising. Organic reach is everything.
by Thursday,
Let's face it, everyone, organic marketing is dead.
and by Friday.
We should probably try an interpretive dance on TikTok.
Neither extreme is particularly helpful, because organic marketing is neither free nor impossible. It simply requires a different investment. Not necessarily money, but certainly time, effort, patience, and a willingness to continue doing sensible things long after they stop feeling exciting. Which is unfortunate because modern culture has become deeply attached to immediate results. We live in a world where almost everything happens instantly. Need food? Someone delivers it. Need entertainment? It's available immediately. Need validation? Well, there's an app for that. So naturally, businesses assume marketing should work the same way.
There is a fascinating moment in every business owner's journey where they publish their first piece of content and then begin checking the analytics approximately every 7 minutes. Nothing happens. They check again. Still nothing. By lunchtime, they're researching whether the algorithm is personally biased against them. By dinner, they've concluded society no longer values expertise. In reality, the article has been online for 4 hours. Organic marketing, unfortunately, operates on a timeline that feels less like social media and more like gardening. And not even exciting gardening. The kind where you spend months watering something that appears to be dirt. You plant, you nurture, you wait, you question your life choices, you continue anyway. And then one day, something appears. The problem is that businesses often compare organic marketing to paid advertising, which is understandable, but slightly misleading. Paid advertising is like hiring a helicopter. You get immediate visibility. People notice you straight away. It's dramatic, impressive, and occasionally expensive enough to induce mild sweating.
Organic marketing is more like building a road. At first, absolutely nobody is impressed. Progress feels painfully slow, people ask awkward questions, and several stakeholders wonder if anything is actually happening. But eventually, people start using it. Then more people, then more, and suddenly you've created something viable that keeps on working long after the construction crew has gone home. I once met a business owner who proudly told me,
We tried content marketing.
which is a fascinating sentence, like saying, we tried exercise or we tried friendship. Naturally, I asked how long they'd been committed to it.
3 weeks.
3 weeks? Which in organic marketing terms is roughly equivalent to standing in a field, planting seeds, waiting until Tuesday and then announcing, agriculture has failed. This is perhaps the greatest misunderstanding of all. Businesses often expect organic marketing to produce immediate transactions, when its real purpose is something much more valuable. It builds familiarity, trust, recognition and authority. The things people rarely notice while they're being built, but immediately notice when they're missing. Because customers rarely wake up one morning and think,
I've never heard of this company before, but I'd like to give them a significant amount of money immediately.
people buy from businesses they recognise, businesses they trust, businesses that have shown up consistently enough to feel familiar. And that's what organic marketing is really doing. Quietly, patiently, in the background. Every article, every podcast, every helpful social post, every useful insight, every answer to a customer's question. They are all tiny deposits into what we might call the trust bank. A concept that some people find extremely confusing.
Can I withdraw trust?
No, you can't.
Can I earn interest?
Oh, well, I suppose metaphorically.
I don't like metaphorical banking.
You've already invested in it heavily. And this is the point. Organic marketing isn't free. You're paying with consistency, with expertise, with patience, with the willingness to keep showing up before you know exactly what the outcome will be. Which sounds suspiciously like hard work. Well, because it is. But, unlike many marketing tactics that disappear the moment you stop paying for them, organic marketing leaves something behind. A reputation, an audience, a library of useful content, a body of trust that compounds over time. And that's why businesses that commit to it often win. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily. And usually while their competitors are still refreshing analytics after 4 hours and wondering whether society has collapsed.
Part 2. The problem with attention.
Now, let's talk about attention. Because attention has become one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Possibly more valuable than oil. Certainly more valuable than most corporate mission statements, and almost certainly more valuable than that NFT your cousin insisted would change everything. The problem is that attention is finite. Every human being gets exactly the same 24 hours a day, and businesses are competing for a tiny fraction of that time. Which means every day your audience wakes up and is immediately confronted by notifications, emails, messages, videos, adverts, news alerts, social media updates, and at least one person on LinkedIn celebrating a promotion with the emotional restraint of a victory parade. Before most people have finished breakfast, they've already encountered more marketing than their grandparents saw in an entire week, possibly a month. And yet, despite this overwhelming volume of content, businesses continue behaving as though the problem is simply, we need to post more content. There is a particularly tragic category of marketing strategy that consists entirely of increasing the frequency of something no one wanted in the first place. The thinking goes something like this. Our audience didn't engage. Perhaps the content wasn't relevant. No. Perhaps it wasn't useful. Certainly not. The obvious solution is clearly more of it. This is roughly equivalent to discovering that no one is enjoying your best man speech and responding by extending it by 4 hours. The challenge isn't volume, it's value. Because people aren't suffering from a lack of content, they're suffering from an abundance of it. Every platform, every device, every screen is competing for attention, which means businesses aren't just competing against competitors, they're competing against everything. Your carefully crafted blog post isn't competing with another article. It's competing with cat videos, football highlights, holiday photos, weather forecasts, online shopping, and whatever someone has accidentally clicked on this week.
The title said, Ancient Civilizations and Their Unexpected Relationship with Cheese.
And was there a relationship?
Not really, but I watched 42 minutes just to be certain.
Exactly. And this is the environment your marketing operates within. Which is why organic marketing succeeds when it stops trying to interrupt people and starts helping them instead. Because here's something fascinating. People will happily ignore advertising, but they'll actively seek useful information. They'll search for answers, advice, guidance, expertise, solutions to problems. Nobody wakes up thinking,
I hope someone aggressively markets to me today.
But people frequently think,
I wish someone would explain this properly.
And that's where organic marketing wins. Not by shouting louder, but by becoming the answer to questions people are already asking. The internet is full of businesses desperately trying to be interesting, when often they would be far more successful being useful. Interesting gets attention. Useful gets remembered, and remembered is where the real value lives. Because attention is fleeting, trust is cumulative. Think about the people and brands you generally pay attention to. It's rarely because they're the loudest, it's because they've repeatedly provided something worthwhile. Information, entertainment, insight, help. Over time, something subtle happens. You begin recognizing them, trusting them, listening to them, not because they demanded your attention, but because they've earned it. And that's the crucial distinction. Paid marketing often rents attention. Organic marketing builds a relationship with it. One is like hiring a billboard, the other is like becoming the person who chose to listen to it. Now, admittedly, becoming trusted takes longer, which is why many businesses find it frustrating, because organic marketing asks for patience, and patience is not something modern marketing culture particularly celebrates. We celebrate growth hacks, shortcuts, secret formulas, and perhaps miracle strategies. There is no secret formula. There never was. There are only useful people being consistently useful. The marketing industry occasionally finds this information upsetting, because the truth is almost disappointingly simple. Businesses win attention organically by creating things worth paying attention to, repeatedly, over time, without expecting immediate applause, which sounds far less exciting than
10 viral marketing secrets nobody wants you to know.
But it has one significant advantage. It actually works. And perhaps that's the most important lesson. In a world where everyone is competing for attention, the businesses that win are often the ones who stop chasing attention altogether and start earning it instead.
Part 3. Content is trust in disguise.
One of the most common misconceptions in organic marketing is the belief that content marketing is about creating, content. Which sounds reasonable. After all, it's literally called content marketing. But much like CRM software often involves remarkably little relationship management, the name can be slightly misleading. Because content itself is not the objective. Trust is. Content is simply the vehicle carrying it from one person to another. This is important because many businesses approach content with entirely the wrong mindset. They ask,
What should we post this week?
When the more useful question is,
What would our audience actually find helpful?
These may sound similar. They are not. One begins with the business, the other begins with the customer, and the difference changes everything. A blog post isn't really a blog post, not to the reader. It's evidence. Proof that you understand a problem. Proof that you've encountered it before. Proof that you might actually know what you're talking about. Likewise, a podcast isn't just audio. A podcast is essentially a long-form trust-building exercise disguised as entertainment. People voluntarily spend 30 or 40 minutes listening to your thoughts, which is either a remarkable privilege or evidence that society has become much stranger than anticipated. And every time they do, something subtle happens. You become familiar. Now, familiarity doesn't sound particularly exciting. It's not viral. It doesn't generate headlines. Nobody posts on LinkedIn saying, "Thrilled to announce I've retrieved moderate familiarity." Yet familiarity is one of the most powerful forces in marketing, because humans trust things they recognize, not automatically, not blindly, but recognition lowers resistance. There is a fascinating phenomenon where someone can spend 6 months quietly consuming your content without ever contacting you. No comments, no likes, no shares, nothing. From your perspective, they do not exist. Then one day they appear. Request a proposal, book a meeting, become a customer, and casually mention, "Oh yes, I've been reading your articles for ages." At which point most marketers experience a brief emotional crisis, because they've spent the previous 6 months assuming nobody is paying attention. This happens far more often than people realise, because audiences are much quieter than analytics would have you believe. Many people consume content silently. They read, they watch, they listen, they observe. They're not engaging publicly, they're evaluating privately, which means the impact of content often extends far beyond what can be measured. And this is where organic marketing becomes slightly magical. Not magical in the sense of miracles, magical in the sense that the results often appear disconnected from the effort. You publish a post today, nothing obvious happens. You publish another next week, still nothing dramatic. A month later, another, then another, then another. Eventually, someone discovers one of them. Then another, and suddenly a body of work begins to emerge. Not just content, evidence, proof, authority, credibility. The accumulated result of consistently showing up with something useful to say. Trust behaves very much like compound interest, which is unfortunate because most people dislike both while they're building. At the beginning, progress feels microscopic. You put effort in, very little appears to happen. You question everything, then eventually the accumulation becomes visible, and people start describing you as an expert, often long after you've become tired of hearing yourself explain the same things. The irony is that expertise frequently arrives disguised as repetition, and this is why content marketing works. Not because content is inherently valuable, but because trust is. Every useful article says, "We understand this topic." Every helpful video says, "We've solved this problem before." Every thoughtful podcast says, "We're worth listening to." None of these messages need to be stated explicitly. The audience figures them out naturally, which is far more persuasive. A thing to remember is that confidence is not trust. Claims as well are not trust. Trust comes from demonstrating value repeatedly over time, which is admittedly slower but considerably far more effective, because ultimately people don't buy because you told them that you're good. They buy because you've shown them again and again until the decision feels obvious. And that's the real purpose of content, not filling a calendar, not feeding an algorithm, not satisfying a marketing plan. It's building enough trust that when someone finally needs what you have to offer, you're the first name they think of. And in organic marketing, that's where the real victories begin.
Part 4. The David Incident.
Now, having established that organic marketing is really about building trust, providing value, and consistently showing up for your audience, it seems only fair that we revisit David, who you may remember from episode 8. Because David represents a type of marketer that exists in every organisation. Not an actual person necessarily, more of a force of nature, a phenomenon. A man capable of reading 3 articles about content marketing and somehow arriving at entirely the wrong conclusion.
Hello again.
David recently asked me how businesses win with organic marketing. David, tell us about your strategy.
I was very proactive.
Well, that's worrying.
I scheduled 90 promotional posts.
90?
I wanted consistency.
And what did these posts say?
Mostly buy now.
Right.
Occasionally, limited time offer.
Anything education?
No.
Anything helpful? Insights?
No.
Industry expertise?
No, not really.
Customer stories?
Well, I felt they would distract from the buying.
Of course you did. You see, David has fallen into one of the most common traps in organic marketing. He assumed organic marketing was simply advertising without a budget. It isn't. Organic marketing and advertising are cousins, related, but fundamentally different creatures. Advertising says, "Here is a thing, please buy it." Organic marketing says, "Here is something useful, perhaps we should get acquainted." One asks for attention immediately, the other gradually earns it. Unfortunately, gradual earning doesn't feel nearly as exciting as immediate asking, which is why many businesses become impatient. There is a specific point in every content strategy where someone asks,
"When do we start selling?"
This question is usually approximately 3 weeks into a 12-month strategy. It's the business equivalent of meeting someone at breakfast and asking why they haven't agreed to spend Christmas with you. Relationships take time. Trust takes time. Authority takes time. Marketing people explain this repeatedly. Business owners nod thoughtfully and then ask again next Tuesday. Now let's go back to David. Now, David naturally believed he had found a better approach. Tell everyone about the campaign, David.
I made every post a sales post.
Every post?
Every single one.
And how did your audience respond?
They disappeared.
A shocking development. Because here's the thing. People don't follow businesses because they enjoy being sold to. They follow businesses because they expect some kind of value. Information, insight, entertainment solutions, or perhaps guidance. Nobody joins a conversation hoping to hear the same sentence repeated indefinitely. Imagine attending a network event where one person simply walks around saying,
"Buy my product."
And again and again. In fact, imagine they continue doing this during completely unrelated conversations. Lovely weather.
"Buy my product."
How was your holiday?
"Buy my product."
This is a wedding.
"Limited time offer. Buy my product."
Eventually, security becomes involved. And yet, astonishingly, some businesses attempt exactly this on social media, every day for years, then wonder why engagement declines. The reality is that audiences reward generosity, not desperation. The businesses that succeed organically are usually the ones giving away useful information long before they ask for anything in return. They're answering questions, solving problems, sharing expertise, and providing value, not because they're avoiding sales, but because they're creating the conditions to make sales possible later. David, what happened after your campaign failed?
I tried posting less often.
And changing the content?
No.
Improving the value?
No.
Understanding your audience?
Well, I changed the font.
Of course you did. This is another classic mistake. Businesses often focus on optimization before they've established relevance. They're tweaking colours, testing hashtags, adjusting layouts, all while ignoring the far bigger question. Is anybody finding this useful? Because organic marketing doesn't fail because the font was wrong. It fails because the audience wasn't given a reason to care. And this brings us back to the central truth. Organic marketing isn't about asking for attention, it's about earning it. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. The businesses that win organically aren't necessarily the cleverest or the loudest or even the most creative. They're the ones who show up repeatedly with something genuinely worthwhile to say. And eventually, almost without noticing, their audience begins to trust them, to listen to them, to recommend them, which is exactly what David wanted all along. David, what have we learned?
People don't enjoy being shouted at.
Good.
Unless they're at a football match.
Well, we're making progress.
So instead of saying buy now every day, I should help people first?
Exactly.
Then occasionally say buy now.
Now you're getting it. And remarkably, that's a better organic marketing strategy than many businesses are currently using.
Part 5. Consistency creates compound growth.
One of the most comforting truths in marketing is also one of the least glamorous, which is unfortunate because marketing, as an industry, has always had a slight preference for the glamorous. The truth is this: consistency usually beats brilliance. Now, that's not to say brilliant ideas don't matter. Of course they do. Everybody loves a brilliant idea. They arrive dramatically. People write case studies about them. Conference speakers build entire careers around explaining them. And LinkedIn posts about them often begin with,
"What happened next shocked us."
But for most businesses, success doesn't come from one extraordinary moment. It comes from 100 ordinary ones. Nothing spectacular, nothing viral, just this steady accumulation of trust over time. There is a universal business fantasy involving a single piece of content. The perfect article, the perfect video, the perfect campaign. The one magical piece of marketing that instantly generates awareness, inquiries, authority, and enough customers to make retirement a realistic conversation. This fantasy persists despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. It's the marketing equivalent of buying a lottery ticket and mentally furnishing the yacht. The reality is much less dramatic, but considerably more reliable. Because organic marketing behaves less like winning the lottery and more like planting trees. At first, very little appears to happen. You begin wondering whether you've accidentally purchased decorative sticks. Then gradually, almost imperceptibly, things start to change. More people recognize your name. More people engage with your content. More inquiries arrive. More opportunities emerge. Not because of any single thing that you've published, but because people have seen you repeatedly. And this is where organic marketing becomes particularly interesting. Because unlike advertising, it compounds. Advertising rents attention. Organic marketing builds assets. With advertising, you pay for visibility. Stop paying, and as we've said, much of that visibility disappears. Organic marketing works differently. Every useful article, every podcast episode, every helpful video, every thoughtful social post becomes another way for people to discover your business. At first, this can feel deeply unsatisfying. You publish something, nothing happens. You publish something else, still nothing obvious. You begin wondering whether you're creating content or simply documenting your own disappointment. There is a moment in every content creator's life when they stare at an analytics dashboard and think,
surely somebody has read this.
Technically, they have. One was your colleague, one was your mum, and one was a bot from Singapore that appears unusually interested in industrial adhesives. But here's the thing. Organic marketing compounds. One article leads to another. A podcast leads to a website visit. A website visit leads to an inquiry. An inquiry leads to a customer. Not immediately, but repeatedly. Think about the businesses, writers or brands that you trust. It's rarely because of one interaction. It's because you've encountered them again and again. You've read multiple articles, watched several videos, listened to few episodes of their podcast. You've seen them show up consistently over time. Trust isn't built in moments, it's built in patterns, and patterns require repetition. Just as we've repeated some of the things that we've already spoken about earlier on in this episode. Most meaningful relationships develop this way. Friendships, partnerships, professional relationships. Nobody says,
I met them once and immediately trusted them completely.
That's usually the opening scene of a cautionary Netflix documentary. Businesses, however, expect trust to develop far more quickly. They publish 3 social posts and wonder why no one's calling. Launch a blog and expect authority by next Thursday. Record a podcast episode and start mentally preparing for their acceptance speech. Organic marketing has a different schedule because audiences are quietly observing, evaluating, watching, learning. They're not always commenting, they're not always engaging, they're not always visible, but they are there. And every useful piece of content adds another small layer of credibility. One article will not establish authority, but 50 might. One podcast episode won't build a loyal audience. A year of episodes, well, good. One helpful social post won't transform a business. Hundreds might. The individual effort seems insignificant. The cumulative effect rarely is. And perhaps that's the greatest misunderstanding in organic marketing. People overestimate the importance of individual pieces of content while underestimating the power of sustained effort. Because the goal isn't today's content, it's the cumulative effect of all the content. Eventually, someone discovers something you published 6 months ago, or a year ago, or longer, and suddenly work you've already done starts generating new opportunities. That's the magic, not viral moments, not marketing hacks, not explosive overnight success. Just the steady accumulation of trust, authority, and visibility over time, which isn't the most exciting strategy in the world, but it does have one significant advantage. It works.
Part 6. How businesses actually win.
So, how do businesses win with organic marketing? Not through shortcuts, not through hacks, and certainly not by shouting louder than everyone else. They win by becoming consistently useful. They win by answering questions. They win by sharing expertise. They win by helping people before asking for anything in return. Because organic marketing isn't really about content. It's about trust. And trust remains one of the few competitive advantages that becomes more valuable over time. The businesses that succeed organically are rarely the loudest. They're the most helpful, the most consistent, the most human, which is wonderfully reassuring because unlike advertising budgets, those things are available to almost everyone. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Overthinker's Guide to Modern Marketing. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and remember, organic marketing isn't about going viral. It's about becoming visible to the right people, often slowly and then all at once, because the best time to start creating useful content was, probably 3 years ago. The second best time is immediately after you've finished listening to this episode. And there are 3 actions businesses can take this week. 1. Answer 3 customer questions publicly. 2. Publish 1 useful piece of content. And 3. Stop making every post a sales post. So try being useful before being promotional. It's astonishing how often that works. Cheers.
The Overthinker's Guide to Modern Marketing is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and most places where people go to think slightly more deeply while convincing themselves they're building a content strategy instead of procrastinating on something else entirely.